Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, very different. We don't really do face cam very often, and the real reason for this is because what I'm talking about today is kind of just coming off my chest. It's not scripted, and to be honest, most of my videos aren't scripted, right? But no visual cues for today's video because we're just talking about something that I think is very important. I know a lot of my cohorts, a lot of my teammates, a lot of other players find this very important as well, and I think it's finally worth talking about. And I know that people have been talking about it for a long time. There's been many Facebook posts regarding this. There's been a lot of outcry, but for some reason this is something that Bandai hasn't actually addressed personally, at least from what I remember seeing. I don't remember seeing them ever talk about this, and that's the play till one undefeated rule. We're going to talk about this today. I think it's finally time to address this, get this out in the open. And I will say, to Bandai's credit, they're great at addressing things that the community finds problematic or in some cases game breaking. They do address it, they do fix it oftentimes, and I'm very happy about that. I've always said, like, I came to this game from Yu-Gi-Oh! Konami is the polar opposite of Bandai when it comes to talking to their player base and communicating. Konami is like the Wizard of Oz. You just never see them, you're not meant to see them. They do all their things behind the scenes. Bandai, I've always loved how communicative, if that's a word, how much communication they put forward with us on all these different things. But for some reason, the play till one undefeated rule has never been addressed by them, and I'm not quite sure why. But anyways, let's go through like a little bit of the history first. I don't fully remember when the play till one undefeated rule got introduced. If you guys do know that, of course, drop it down in the comments. It would be cool to know exactly when. I don't know if it was right before COVID, and that would have been like around the time of the Chicago Regional, one of the last IRL events before COVID. Yeah, again, I don't remember when it was implemented. Maybe it was right at the beginning of COVID. Maybe it was even earlier than that. I honestly just don't remember. But it was a very unpopular rule the entire time that it was implemented. I don't know if people really understood the implications, like when the rule was first implemented, but I'll say I've never heard of another card game that uses this type of rule. The big three, Pokemon Magic, as far as I'm aware, don't use it. I know for a fact Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't use it. I still follow that game in the meta and tournaments and whatnot. They don't do that, and honestly, I think that a Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, if they had to play in a Dragon Ball tournament of this format, I think they'd find it laughable. And I'm not trying to say that to like slight Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. They would be totally right in finding it laughable, because the biggest problem with playing till one undefeated, it really does reduce the integrity of these tournaments. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just the fact of the matter. When these tournaments are able to end 1 to 2 rounds earlier, and I think one of the Gen Con tournaments ended 2 rounds earlier, where the player, I think it was George Machado, I don't totally remember 100%. I'm pretty sure the player in the finals there got bumped down to like 9th place after losing in the finals because the tournament ended a whole 2 rounds early. There have just been so many examples of things like this happening, and like I said, it just knocks down the competitive integrity of these tournaments, and I think at this point it's not okay. I think back when I started my channel, the game was very new and I was very new to content creation, and I did a fair amount of like Doom posts or Doom videos. This is not meant to be a Doom video. This is not meant to like slight anyone. This is not meant to thrash anyone. I think this is just finally worth having a real conversation about, getting out in the open. Maybe we can make some change here, because I've definitely learned over my time making videos and content for this game that you have to let things air out. You can't really just like see a card and be like, oh, automatic, that's broken, it has to be banned before it even releases. You can't really do that. It's not smart to do, in my opinion. At this point, though, we've had this one undefeated rule for over a year at this point. It's finally time we talk about this, guys. Yeah, I just have a little thing of notes here. That's all I'm going off of. This is gonna be just kind of off the top of my head, and what I'm thinking about this whole thing. So we talked about where it might have came from. Again, I don't remember the exact time period, but we've had it for a long time now. Why was the play till one undefeated rule implemented? Now, I don't know for a fact. I don't work for Bandai, but my assumption, it's very convenient to have this rule implemented, right? It's pretty nice for tournament organizers because, hey, if you can end a tournament 1 to 2 rounds earlier, cool, great. Everyone gets to go home earlier. And I won't even lie. Even as a player, there have been tournaments where I've been relieved that it ended a round or 2 earlier. There were some tournaments that I got into Top Cut, not because of the rounds ending earlier, but I just happened to have a secure spot. And then I got to go out with my friends after the fact to just have a good time, and we had more time to actually enjoy, the vacation that we traveled to, if you want to go with that. And that was cool, right? It's cool. But there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It lowers the competitive integrity of an event. Another reason it might have been implemented is because it sounds good, and this is one of the things where I think it sounds good on paper, but it's terrible in practice, because I guess if you think about it, it could be argued that it makes sense to end a tournament when there's one undefeated, or at least the Swiss rounds of a tournament when there's one undefeated, because there's only one more undefeated. So you end it right there, you take the standings, go to Top Cut the next day, or just have final standings right there. And maybe it makes more sense for like a Swiss only tournament where you have the one undefeated and that's it, right? Maybe that makes a little bit more sense, again, on paper, but in practice, this is proven to be a very, very terrible rule that causes really poor player experience, guys. And this is really, really exacerbated by the DBS Fest from this previous weekend. I'm not going to call out names. I'm not going to call out a company. I don't think that's really necessary. I don't even want them to catch heat for this because, one, I think it's fair to give them a little bit of slack because as far as I'm aware, this is their first big TO venture. And I don't want them to stop TOing. I don't want anyone that has TO'd or will TO Dragon Ball Super to not host another tournament. That just wouldn't be smart of me. It wouldn't be great for the game. I hope that they learn from this experience and are able to move forward and host better events. But yeah, this DBS Fest from the past weekend was not good, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. But the main issue with playing until one undefeated really got exacerbated a couple months ago when we were experiencing tons and tons of draws. I think that pretty much started happening right after the set 14 emergency ban list, where they kind of axed all the crazy aggro decks, and then we definitely entered more of like a mid-range format, which is cool. I love mid-range. I thought that was really fun, but the games ended up taking a lot longer and drawing out a lot more. We started seeing a lot of draws, and this hadn't really been too much of a problem prior, but now that every game seemed to go to game 3 and end in a draw, we had tournaments ending even faster because technically after you draw, you're not undefeated anymore. And again, we saw tournaments ending 1 to a whole 2 rounds earlier even, and it was really bad. A lot of players just lose their opportunity to top cut when in any other card game there would have just been a set number of rounds and that would have been the end of it. Doesn't matter how many times you draw, doesn't matter who's the last undefeated, there is just that set number of rounds. You have your opportunity within those rounds to have the best record you can and hopefully make top cut, right? So what did Bandai do? They addressed that. They addressed the issue of drawing, which they did right before everyone's biggest tournament of the year, which maybe wasn't the best move. So basically they implemented the rules where instead of just, games ending at time being an automatic draw, we're now going to compare life to see who wins at the end of time procedures, which wasn't a perfect solution. I've racked my brain on this. A lot of my teammates and stuff, we've talked about this, other players as well. Dragon Ball is one of those weird games where it's really difficult to come to a happy conclusion about determining a winner at the end of time procedures because the game is so unique, right? Like, you have your life points, but some decks need to take life quickly to get online. Other decks are very comfortable at sitting at 8 life the entire game and winning that way. So a lot of people said that once they implemented these time rules, that decks like Soul Striker, Hachiyak, any of these decks that could just like sit at really high life and never need to go lower, were automatically advantaged. Is that true or not? Sure, to a degree, but that's not really important here. They ended up going with these time procedures, which again wasn't a great look because it was right before Nationals. Maybe they could have done that earlier, or maybe they could have kept the National season the same and tried it afterwards, but they did it, and it did help to a degree. Basically, with this situation set up, draws were not able to happen. There was one instance where a player could draw, and I believe I'm getting it correctly. That is when there's a winner for game 1, another winner for game 2, time is called, and game 3 has not started yet. If I'm, explaining that correctly, that's the only way in which a draw can actually occur. So, long story short, the moral of it is, draws have been drastically reduced in the Dragon Ball Super card game, which, as far as, I guess, tournament integrity goes with this one undefeated rule, was meant to improve it. But they wanted to implement this anti-draw strategy instead of just addressing the one undefeated rule. For what reason? Again, I don't know. They could have kept the end of time procedures exactly the same, and if tournaments were played to a set number of rounds, again, it wouldn't matter how many times you draw. You could go 4 wins, 4 draws. Actually, going back to like set 4 or 5 times, Danny Wynn, my good friend Danny, my teammate Danny, he topped an event at 404, or maybe he just bubbled out, but like, the point is, a record of 4 wins and 4 draws after 8 rounds was good enough to be considered top cut, right? And that could just be the case if there is a set number of rounds per the amount of players. And if you guys don't know, there is a certain number of rounds you're supposed to play for a Swiss tournament, dependent on how many players are attending your event. For some reason, though, in Dragon Ball Super, we're not doing this. This rule just needs to go. it's not worth sticking around. I don't see a reason for it anymore. It really is just a huge problem. And at this past event, the DBS Fest, if you guys heard, again, I'm not naming names, I'm not going to call anyone out. There was a situation in which the top some odd players decided to not show up to their rounds, and they were granted a draw because of that. Now, again, this was best of one pre-side, by the way. So in best of one, there is literally no way for this to be a draw. And this is actually not Bandai's fault, because again, in their layout for best of one, there is no method in which a match can end in a draw, as far as I'm aware. So this was ruled incorrectly by the tournament organizers. Again, I don't want to bash on them because I don't want them to stop TOing. I want them to just learn from this experience and move forward, as I'm sure they're already doing. But the point is, this wouldn't even be so bad on the tournament organizers if this play till one undefeated rule was abolished. These players wouldn't have felt the necessity to try and end the tournament early if the play till one undefeated rule was no longer a thing. Now, on top of that, with the tournament ending early, there were players who had a record of X1 that were not able to get into Top Cut because of this. Again, when you play these tournaments that have a set number of rounds, X1 is guaranteed into Top Cut 99% of the time. It's so rare that that would ever happen. Again, unless you had like a massive amount of draws, which is a different case. But yeah, that is so rare and so unfortunate and so demoralizing, to be completely honest with you guys, that this rule just needs to go. This weekend really showed us that this is not the way to move forward with Dragon Ball Super card game. Again, this is not a doom video. This is not me saying like this needs to change or the game is going to die. This is in no way me saying that. This is just me, you know, laying out all the information I have for you guys, giving a as informed of an opinion on this as possible, because I just don't think it's good for the game. You know, screw the convenience. If you're signing up for this tournament organizing type of job, you know what you're signing up for. If you're hosting an event once a month or once every couple months and you're gonna have a late night, sorry guys, that's kind of the culture and that's kind of the job field you guys signed up for. And as far as Bandai's concerned, this is directly to you guys. I really think it would be doing your community a huge favor if you were to get rid of this rule. Now, one more thing for this video that I do want to touch on, and this might get a little bit more, I don't know, controversial, but unfortunately, I think we're way too lax. Not we as a community, I think Bandai as a rule setter, I think is way too lax on cheaters as of late. A lot of people want to talk down about webcam events because there is just infinitely more ways you can cheat in a webcam event, which is just a fact, you know. And again, I'm not going to call out names, but there's a Twitch clip out there from this past weekend where this player literally had his handful of cards on stream, by the way, which if you're the player to do this on stream, I don't know what's going on in your brain to make you think this is a smart thing to do. But this player literally had his hand of cards, reaches down to his lap, not even quickly, and picks up a new card. You can see it plain as day. Again, not calling anyone out, not linking it, but that's out there, right? And that's not cool. That player, as far as I'm aware, has been banned from one circuit series in particular, or one area or one region in particular. And I think there's just too many cases of this type of stuff that is not taken to the appropriate consequence level, if that makes sense. That's kind of been a thing throughout the entire game's history that is always unfortunate to see when, you know, someone has a track record or, you know, someone makes a really big offense and they kind of get away with a slap on the wrist. It just kind of says, you know, you're not disincentivized to cheat. You can draw an extra card and then we'll just look at your hand and send a card back. You know, it's not great, guys. But anyways, I just wanted to air out my opinions here. Very free form type of video. I don't know how you guys will react to this. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Am I wrong in any cases? Do you agree with me in any cases? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see where this goes. And thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Yo, Dragon Ballers, real quick, I need to let you guys know about two events that are coming up soon, being hosted by PPG. All the info will be down in the description, but we have the Dragon Ball Super Card Game Fest from March 26th to the 27th. This is going to be the first ever event where they are trying out the sideboarded best of one format. Besides that, it'll just be a celebration of the Dragon Ball Super Card Game, so you're not going to want to miss it. The other one is for organized play through the Pro Play Tour. We have the regional qualifier April 2nd in Kentucky, shots to the Midwest, so you're definitely not going to want to miss that. Shout out to PPG because they run awesome tournaments, but also besides that, This is the thing I've been concerned about in the past, where these tournaments just don't get enough advertisement. So shout out to PBG for doing more and putting in more work to advertise these events. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video.